Walter Kirn joins us this morning. Good morning.
Morning.
So you first met this man who called himself Clark Rockefeller in 1998. What did you think when you met him?
Well, I met him through very strange circumstances. I delivered a crippled dog from a humane society in Montana all the way to New York that he'd adopted on the internet. So it was kind of a blind meeting. And I met him at a very fancy club in Midtown Manhattan, looking down on Rockefeller Center. At the end of dinner, he said, "Would you like to take a tour of the center? I have the key right here, the master key." So what I thought about him was that he was a braggart, he was an eccentric, he was perhaps one of the richest and most prominent members of New York society. And though he seemed bigger than life, I had no reason to doubt that he was real.
And then you became close friends with him.
Well, as close a friend as you can become with someone who's secretly a fugitive from a murder case. He sort of called the shots as far as the relationship. I didn't call him, he called me.
He told you a lot of lies. Was he a good liar?
He was the Einstein of lying. I mean, he may be the 20th century champion of lying. He told me, for example, one time when I said I had a tax problem, that I could call a number which he gave me and get on the phone to George Bush, the sitting president, George Bush Jr., and solve it. He said, his secretary won't answer, this is his private line. Now, you might think I'm crazy for believing that that could possibly be real, but I thought, somebody has the president's phone number, you'd think it might be a Rockefeller.
Okay,
But
go ahead.
But you're a journalist. That didn't send off your BS meter? Because if somebody told me that, I'd be like, okay, this guy's a phony.
Well, have you ever met rich people or powerful people who also happen to be phonies, who also brag a lot, who also boast a lot?
You have to ask that?
Yeah. It's almost diagnostic.
We don't want to embarrass anybody on live TV.
Yeah. But I mean, I know poor people phony too. But
yeah, sure.
Clearly. I mean, so this guy, you partly wanted in. I mean, you like the idea of knowing a Rockefeller, and therefore it makes you a bit more gullible, or not?
A little bit. I went to Princeton. I grew up on a farm in Minnesota. They didn't treat me all that well at the prep school clubs at Princeton. And so being friends with a Rockefeller kind of felt good.
So you go to see him in jail.
Yeah.
What's that like?
Well, after he was convicted, I went to see him in jail, and he didn't have on his blue blazer and his bow tie, let me tell you. I looked at him.
Is he still lying is the question.
Yeah, I asked him if he'd committed the murder. No, he blamed it on the wife of the victim, who probably was also murdered. But I did ask him, how did you con people for all these years? What was the secret of manipulating human beings? And he looked at me and he said, "Walter, it's very simple. Vanity, vanity, vanity. You play to their vanity."
Yeah.
And I realized that's how
he played to your vanity too. That's the point.
This book is all about going back and finding out how I was tricked. Americans are tricked by their leaders, their business leaders, their wives and their husbands. But every time we're tricked, we participate. How did I participate?
Well, that's interesting. So how did he appeal to your vanity and other people's vanity? How did he trick them?
Well, one thing he told me was that I was his best friend. Everybody else wanted something from him. Everybody else wanted his money. But because I was a writer and an artist, I was satisfied with myself and was the only person he could trust. I mean, crazy.
Yeah. Interesting.
When you look at this at the end of this and you write this book, he's a killer.
Yeah, he's a killer. And learning that he was a killer made the trap door open underneath me. I realized that not only had I been in the company of a fraud, but somebody who was capable of cutting up a body into 3 pieces, putting it in bags, and burying it in the yard. There's no reducing that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Walter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Blood Will Out is on sale now. You can see Aaron Moriarty's full report, a.k.a. Rockefeller, on 48 Hours. That's tomorrow night around 10, 9 Central, right after NCAA basketball, right here on CBS.